A 12-bar Delta blues practice routine in the style of the legendary Big Bill Broonzy. It's going to look and sound like this. A 1, 2, 3. Let's break that down. Okay, close look at the fretboard, getting started breaking down this Delta blues style 12-bar routine. We're in standard tuning and we have a capo here on the 2nd fret, but we're going to be playing in E-shaped position. So we're going to discuss everything as if we're in the key of E. Okay, so let's get started breaking down the pickup bar and that first measure of music over the E dominant 7 chord. Looks and sounds like this real slow. A 1, 2, 3. And with the count, a 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So important that we practice counting as we play. Okay, so that began grabbing the 2nd fret of the D string, then hammering onto the B string 0 to 2, and then the open high E. That'll get us to this classic rhythm over the E7 chord shape. We're grabbing the 4th fret G, 3rd fret B, and 4th fret high E string. It's simply a D7 chord shape being brought up a full step. We're going to begin hitting the bass note, low E string open, along with the highs of the chord. Probably just the B string and the high E string, but you might get a little bit of the G string with your upstroke. We're going to play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So they start off together and then it's just alternating to finish up the measure. Put that together and we've got. And it's going to sound great if you can slide up into that position. Okay, now moving into measure number 2 of the 12-bar routine. It's going to look and sound like this over A7. One more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so there we have 3 varieties of the A major chord. The first one, we're just barring from the D string to the high E string, 2nd fret. Also, we're going to play it with the pinky on the 5th fret high E string relative to the capo. And the dominant 7 variety grabbing the 3rd fret of the high E string. Okay, but we're going to start off in this position with the pinky on the high E string 5th fret. Alright, I might not reach for it right away though. I'll play the A string, then I'll flick up with the index finger, the B string and the G string. That's 1 and. 1 and. Next, I'll hit all the strings together at once. Just kind of paintbrushing my thumb and my middle finger across the strings. Now we have 1 and 2. Go back to the middle strings and. 1 and 2 and. Alright, then we're going to paintbrush again as we grab the dominant 7 variety. Alright, then we're going to frets 2 and 2 of the B and high E string to get that melody. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just the bass note, then those middle strings G and B together once again to finish the measure. Alright, you put that measure together and we have classic blues melody there. Okay, now let's put that together with the pickup line and also measure number 1. And do your best to copy the finger choices that I use with my right hand, but keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of different variety to that technique, and you're going to have to find what works best for you. Okay, so a 1, 2, 3. Alright, now we're going to go to measures 3 and 4, which look and sound like this. Okay, so here we're still maintaining that drive-in bass note. it's going to be thumping all throughout this routine on beats 1, 2, 3, 4. It's one of the trademark features of this style. Okay, so here we have another excellent rhythm over the E major chord, just fretting the kind of garden variety version of the chord, 2nd fret of the A string, 2nd fret D, and 1st fret of the G string. I'm going to start off hitting the bass note, then an upstroke on the highs of the chord, using my thumb and my middle finger. Next, I'm going to collapse my ring finger down over the 2nd frets of the G, B, and high E string, and couple that with the bass note, before going back to the regular chord, just with an upstroke. 1 and 2 and... Okay, next we're going to play 3 and 4 and... Same exact technique, but we're now using the index finger on our right hand, and we're focusing our attention on the B string, G string, and D string. So, 1 and 2 and... You put those two halves together and we have a measure of music. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Next we're going to basically repeat the same thing. 1 and 2 and... But on the second half we're just going to play 3 and 4 and... Very simple. Okay, so far we have... Keeping that bass going. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, now we're returning to the A dominant 7 chord, where we're going to play the exact same thing we did before. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now the second measure of this chord, we're going to switch it up a little bit and play something like this. Okay, so we're playing that barred A major chord shape, playing the bass, then the mids, grabbing that pinky note 5th fret high E string, back to the mids. So far you have 1 and 2 and, then the A dominant 7, 3 and then finally we're going back to just the bar. We're going to do a hammer on and a pull off on the high E string, 2, 3, 2. And we're coupling that with the bass note and as much of the meat of that chord as we can, before going to the 5th fret of the B string, reaching with the pinky. Alright, you put that measure together, we got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, and those two measures over the A7 chord should sound like this, real slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... Okay, from there we're back to the E major chord and playing exactly what we did before. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, now we only have 4 more measures to go. We're going to go to the 5 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the 4 chord, A7, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to the 1 chord, E for a turnaround. Alright, over the 5 chord we're going to play with the count, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, so very similar to what we were playing over top of the A dominant 7, the 4 chord. Now I'm fretting a B dominant 7, technically slash F sharp, meaning that my bass note is here on the 4th fret of the D string relative to the capo, of course. I'm going to start off plucking that note, then the middle strings, G string and B string. It's my index finger. Alright, then we're going to get the full chord, and then go back to the mids. So 1 and 2 and... Alright, now we're going to the pinky note. That's going to be 7th fret of the high E string. Trying to get as much of that chord as we can, bass and the highs, before going just to the B string and the high E. Back on that dominant 7 shape. Alright, then from there it's just going to be bass and then the middle strings. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Sounds great if you can slide up into it. Alright, now we could just take that down a full step for the 4 chord, but instead we're going to take something directly out of the repertoire of Big Bill Broonzy. Looks and sounds like this, a great lick over the A7 chord. Get into the E chord a little bit early. Okay, so there we're starting off with the A major chord being fretted with that bar. We're gonna play the bass note, the middle strings. Next, the bass note with the high E string, 2nd fret, hammering and pulling, 2, 3, 2. Then the 5th fret B string by itself. So far you have 1 and... Alright, next is alternating. Before going back to the E chord. Alright, so there at the end, the second half of the measure, I still have that A major chord. I'm going to play the open A string with the B string and high E strings together. 5 by itself. Alright, back. And then the E strings, low E and high E. And this is kind of optional. I don't necessarily need to go back to the full shape, but I like to silence the strings I'm not using. Okay, that'll set up a turnaround over the E chord. Okay, you put that lick over the A7 chord together and it should sound like this. And combine it with the measure before that, the B7 going to the A7. Alright, that gets us to the E7 chord where we're going to play. Okay, then walking up to a B augmented chord to finish up the routine. Okay, so this lick over the E7 chord can be broken up into 2 digestible chunks. Chunk number 1 and chunk number 2. Okay, so that began with the low and high E strings together, then the B and high E string by themselves. That first stroke is actually part of the last measure, and it's tying into this measure of E7, but we can pretend that it's just right on the 1. So 1 and. Next, we're going to slide into the E7 chord shape just like we did before, coupled with the bass note, followed by the open strings. That gives us 1 and, 2 and. Next, we need 3 and, just the bass and then the highs, followed by the second half, which is going to be a hammer-on and pull-off trick. Alright, so a little bit tricky here. We're playing the bass note, and then hammering 2, 3, 2, and then pulling off to the open string. Before going to the 2nd fret B string by itself. Alright, from there we can go back to the bass and the highs together, followed by just the open strings to finish all of our work over the E7 chord. Put that together and we have a 1 and 2 and 3 and... Alright, from there all we need to do is walk up to the B augmented chord to finish the routine. Okay, so that was open A, 1st fret, 2nd fret, that's our root note, followed by the 1st fret D string, open G, open B. Alright, you put all that together and we have E7 going to B aug, alright, just like that to finish up this routine. Okay, now that we have all the ingredients, we're going to play through the entire routine in practice, and I'm going to invite you to move your palm back here to the bridge, just over the bridge, so that way you can get a nice palm muting effect, something that's going to take a little bit of experimentation to get down. Okay, getting started with that pickup line. A 1, 2, 3. To the 5 chord. just like that. Congrats everybody, you've made it through the full routine. Now you just need to iron it into your muscle memory. Remember, the key to progressing on the guitar is slow, careful repetition. You don't want to bite off too much. You want to just kind of get small bits at a time and really master them before moving forward. If you need any extra guidance, remember you can head over to my Patreon page where I'm going to have a Guitar Pro and also a printable PDF tab for this lesson and also all my other tutorials. In addition, if you want to check out some of my courses, I have some 5-part courses breaking down some more practice routines via TrueFire, link down in the description. Until next time, this is Rob coming at you from Summers Point, NJ, saying happy picking.